All right, diving into something pretty interesting today. We're looking at AI, or more specifically, what it takes to power it, and how that ties into, believe it or not, the resurgence of nuclear power. Got some articles here, even a deep dive someone put together on Reddit about investing in uranium. Should be interesting to unpack it all.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how these things are all starting to converge.
Hmm.
I mean, AI is becoming more and more a part of everyday life. And at the same time, you have this renewed global push for clean energy, and nuclear power is right in the thick of it.
It is. It's wild when you think about the AI tools we're using, like all the time now. Stuff like those AI image generators, the language models, those things eat up a ton of energy. And as AI gets even more complex, that demand is just going to keep going up.
Absolutely, and that's where nuclear power comes in. We're seeing big players in tech, the Googles, Microsofts, Amazons of the world. They're all pouring money into AI, and they're realizing that they need a reliable, powerful energy source to keep up with the demand. Nuclear is looking more and more like the answer.
It's kind of like something straight out of science fiction when you think about it, having a data center running off its own little nuclear reactor.
Well, it's not as far-fetched as it might sound. There are companies like Oklo that are developing these things called small modular reactors, SMRs for short. What's so revolutionary about them is that they can be deployed much more flexibly than traditional nuclear plants and potentially provide dedicated power right on site at these massive data centers. So you're addressing the energy need and the sustainability concerns all at once.
It's not just about keeping the lights on anymore. It's about powering like the future of technology and doing it in a way that doesn't completely wreck the planet. But this shift towards nuclear for AI, what does this actually mean in the big picture?
Well, if you connect the dots, it could be a huge driver for innovation in nuclear technology. You might see faster development of those SMRs, advancements in safety protocols, maybe even a renewed focus on things like nuclear fusion.
It's like a domino effect. AI pushing demand for clean energy, which then pushes forward nuclear innovation.
Exactly. And that brings up an even bigger point about our reliance on fossil fuels. If nuclear can really deliver as a clean, reliable alternative, especially in power-hungry fields like AI, we could be looking at a much faster transition away from fossil fuels globally.
Yeah,
And it makes you wonder, like, how quickly things could change.
totally. And that actually brings up another point, which is where things get really interesting. So we've talked about nuclear power being important, but it doesn't run on good vibes, right? You need fuel, and that fuel is uranium. And it's like, remember all the hype around lithium for batteries? Well, uranium might be shaping up to be the next big thing.
It's already happening. We're seeing the early signs. The
Mm.
price of uranium has gone way up in the last few years, like 4 or 5 times higher than it was just back in like 2020.
Yeah, and that Reddit post you shared, some of those folks seem to think this is just the beginning. They were calling it a hugely important indicator, and I'm kind of starting to see what's driving this uranium surge. Why is it suddenly the hottest commodity?
It comes down to supply and demand, really. But in this case, it's a bit more complicated. On the supply side, we're seeing old uranium mines reopening. But to open up a brand new mine, that takes time.
How long are we talking about?
It can take like 10 to 15 years to get a new uranium mine fully operational. That's a long lag between realizing you need more uranium and actually having it available.
So even with these mines coming back online, it's not going to be enough to meet this new demand for uranium anytime soon.
Exactly. And the demand isn't just coming from AI either. Over 150 countries are moving towards cleaner energy, and a lot of them are looking at nuclear as a big part of that.
So you've got this explosion in demand, but the supply chain's struggling to catch up. No wonder those uranium prices are going through the roof.
And here's another curveball. The U.S. recently banned uranium imports from Russia.
Russia's a big player in the uranium game
It's
right now.
huge. Historically, they've been a major supplier of enriched uranium.
For those who might not be familiar, can you explain what uranium enrichment is? Why is it so important?
Sure. So natural uranium needs to be enriched to increase the concentration of a specific isotope, U-235, which is the one you need for nuclear reactors. It's a complicated process, and Russia's been a dominant force in that area for a long time.
So, with Russia out of the picture, where is the U.S. going to get its enriched uranium? Can other countries fill that gap?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Kazakhstan is currently the world's largest uranium producer, followed by Canada and Namibia. The U.S. will likely be looking to strengthen ties with these countries, and maybe others, to secure its uranium supply.
It's clear this goes way beyond simple economics. There are huge geopolitical factors at play here. The stakes are pretty high, so Uranium. Sounds like it's on its way to becoming a really valuable resource, huh?
It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
I mean, we talked about the AI boom, the push for clean energy, and then you throw in those geopolitical moves. It seems like uranium prices are set to go way up, which I guess begs the question, should people be looking to invest in uranium?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And it's understandable why people are asking it. But like with any investment, you got to be careful. You got to look at it from all sides. That Reddit post, it was exciting, sure, but it's just one perspective.
They were really all in on uranium. But you're right, it's important to diversify and not put all your eggs in one basket, especially if that basket's, potentially radioactive.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that nuclear energy, even with all its potential, it does come with risks. We can't forget things like Fukushima.
That's a really important point. Those environmental and safety concerns around nuclear power are real. We can't just ignore them, even with these promises of newer, safer technology.
Right. So investors need to really weigh those risks against the potential rewards. And you have to look past just the price of uranium itself. There are all these economic and geopolitical factors that could impact the whole industry, things we can't even predict right now.
So it's not as easy as uranium prices are going up, let's jump in.
It's a lot more complicated than that, unfortunately. You really need to understand how the market works, the technology, even global politics. It's all connected.
Wow, you've given us a lot to think about today. So, for our listeners who want to learn more about all of this, about AI, nuclear energy, geopolitics, what would you say is the biggest takeaway here?
I think it goes beyond just making money. It's bigger than that. We're talking about the future of energy, finding clean, sustainable ways to power our world. And uranium is right in the middle of it all. This is about the choices we make today to shape the next few decades.
It's a fascinating and complex issue, that's for sure. Well, this has been quite a deep dive. A huge thank you, as always, to our expert for breaking all of this down for us. And to you, our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep those minds curious.